Now my great pleasure to introduce Professor Dr. Med Claudio Bassetti. I think your expertise and prominence in the field of neurology and this new area from when I was in medicine of brain health. So the spectrum of any brain health problem and the slogan "No health without brain health" has really been the motto, Claudio, that you've spread not only on a Swiss-wide platform but a global platform. And we know you're co-leading the Lancet Commission on Brain Health, and we're very much looking forward to your lecture talking about the Swiss Brain Health Plan. This is a critical area in looking at clinical research and implementation of research findings across prevention, early diagnosis, and lifestyle integration. So without further ado, thank you once again, Claudio. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Eva. I'm very pleased to be here today. I follow with great attention and enthusiasm the development of the Department of Clinical Research in Bern, an initiative which is important not only for Bern but for the entire Switzerland. And this is also a reason why I accepted with great pleasure to be here with you today. If I could share my screen, I would in the next 20-25 minutes show you what the Swiss Brain Health Plan is. Thank you. And I dared to make a small change to the title. In fact, the Swiss Brain Health Plan is already 4 years old, and when it was presented, it attracted attention, but at the same time questions about the implementation, which is always a little bit the key question when you develop a strategy, how you implement it. So today I will try to show you why and how the Swiss Brain Health Plan was created in the international context of an increasing attention to brain health as a public health priority, and on the other side, what we could develop in Switzerland, again, in the context of an international exchange, which actually takes place until today. Let me stress maybe one important key element of our initiative, which is supported by the Swiss Brain Health Foundation. When we talk about brain health in the context of this initiative, we mean few things at the same time. We mean the health of the brain itself, but we understand also the health of our mental status, so mental health, and eventually the overall well-being of the person. And we believe and we foster the idea that investing in better brains is actually something that will give profit to the individual in their capacity to realize their expectation and their also potentialities, but also for the society at different levels, including the wealth of the society. And this is why we introduced this combined term of human capital.
Of brain disorder, which is the second leading cause of death globally and the leading cause of disability. Brain health is central to our physical and mental health and integral to our human dignity. Still, investment in prevention, early detection.
So I showed this short video just to tell you that the perception and acceptance of brain health as a global challenge and also an opportunity has been now recognized also by other important, I would say, worldwide stakeholders, including the WHO. And this relates to the fact that we have a problem that we would like to address, that we are realizing the great opportunities that we have in promoting brain health and by this preventing also brain disorders. And this is why also for Switzerland, it has become a priority to develop a Swiss brain health plan. So let's talk about the problem, the negative side of my talk, if you want, but also the original motivation. It is shown briefly here. 1 out of 3 in the population, we're talking about current prevalence or punctual prevalence, suffers of brain disorders. Now, as I will show in a moment, the prevalence of brain disorders may be even higher if we believe the recent publication of the Global Burden of Disease study group. So again, when we discuss about brain disorders in the context of the today's talk, we understand both neurological and psychiatric disorders. You know, the brain does not make difference between circuits that are dysfunctional and lead to neurological disorders or circuits that actually underlie psychiatric dysfunction. This is a question of neurobiology, which obviously shared. And so when we talk about neurology and psychiatry, we speak of two sides of the same coin. Now, we all understand that stroke is a disease that is typically taken care of by neurologists. We probably all agree that schizophrenia should be taken care of by psychiatrists. But if we speak about dementia, if we speak about headache, if we speak about sleep loss, sleep disorders, addiction, eating disorders, the borders of the disciplines become a little less clear. And eventually, there are a lot of also of comorbidities when you think about stroke victims having depression, Parkinson, patients developing addiction or depression or anxiety. So in a way, this idea of two sides of the same coin representing the entire field of brain disorders is something that finds support not only in neurobiology, but also in everyday practice. Now, if we look at the brain of brain disorders in the world, we have several recent studies performed by the Global Burden of Disease Study Group, which is this large group of epidemiologists and scientists clustered around the University of Seattle, which actually take advantage of data delivered and actually made available across the world by different institutions. So we're talking about thousands of specialists working with the global burden of disease and data that come from multiple countries, including Switzerland. And if we believe that these publications are, as we understand, reliable, then we have to come to the conclusion that, as I mentioned before, the point prevalence of brain disorders is at least 30%. These are the two recent studies published in Lancet Psychiatry 2022 and Lancet Neurology 2024, which in fact estimate that the point prevalence of neurological disorders may be as high as 40%, and the point prevalence of psychiatry, the other paper, may be as high as 30%. So if we put them together, we are probably even higher than 30%. What has been shown in these studies, which in fact looked at the burden, that is the frequency, the disability, the mortality related to different disorders across 204 countries and territories. Well, then it comes out that, and this is a little bit a surprise to most of you probably, as it was for most of us when it was published, brain disorders represent today the #1 cause of disability, measured or estimated by the so-called dailies, and the #2 cause of death, which obviously is not reflected by the attention that institutions, hospitals, academia gives to brain disorders, and certainly does not reflect or is not reflected by the investment by scientific organization in promoting research in this area, which is actually one of the reasons that we talk about and we raise the attention around the burden. Now, this is one of the first studies, and this is why I show it to you, which actually attempted to have, I would say, a holistic approach to the burden of brain disorders, in this specific case, the costs. And I would not like to go into details. This is a quite rich paper which estimate, again, across the world, based on some basic I would say, methodological assumptions that are related to the global burden of disease study group, which has some limitations, but also a lot of advantages in doing this type of exercises. And the final conclusion was that, as I mentioned before, the global cost of brain disorders are the leading cost worldwide in terms of direct cost. The share between neurological and psychiatric disorders may be similar, with more costs for neurology on a stationary level, whereas psychiatry is more obviously having an impact on the costs in the ambulatory setting, and with an increasing cost of 3.5% per year related to multiple reasons, including aging of the population, the increasing psychosocial burden also on the young generation, and many other causes. COVID certainly also contributed, sleep loss, and many other factors. Now, the busy slide on the right side shows essentially two major messages, or convey two major messages. The first one is that there is a discrepancy between the spending for brain health or brain disorders, which not surprisingly is very high in the higher income country, and obviously overall underrepresented in the overall global burden when it comes to less advantaged countries or regions such as Sub-Saharan Africa or Southeast Asia, and vice versa, that the disability and the population affected by brain disorders and actually reduced brain health is in 3/4 or 3/4 of the overall burden to be found in outside North America and outside Europe. So if you want to promote better brain health and prevent brain disorders, we need to develop strategies and approaches that take into account that 3/4 of the burden actually takes place outside the high income countries. So we need to develop approaches that are scalable for the entire world. The second message that is shown in this slide is this, in fact, poor correlation between the daily and the expenditure, which I will come back to also for showing you the Swiss data. So there is obviously a neglect or an underestimation of the burden when it comes to what the different countries and regions invest in prevention and management of brain disorders. Now, I have decided to focus my talk on the Swiss Brain Health Plan, and this is why I want to show you the Swiss data. It is obviously very important when you enter the public health domain that you convince the political stakeholders with local data. And these are actually the published data, not by us, by the Federal Office of Public Health, which actually just shows you that what I've shown to you worldwide also apply to Switzerland. Today, the #1 cause of disability measured on the dailies in Switzerland in 2021 is to be related to brain disorders, which represent 23% of the entire disability across disorders, and obviously cancer, cardiovascular diseases play also a major role. Now, we have seen that the costs are actually increasing steadily, and this slide shows you not the cost, but the disability as an outcome of burden in Switzerland across the time frame 1990 till 2050. So these are actual data, these are projected data. You see here different disorders: stroke, drug use, suicide, and dementia. And what this slide shows you are two actually key points. The first one is that prevention, also in the brain domain, can work. So we do have a decreasing disability as measured by daily. In stroke, we have a decrease disability related to drug use. We have also a decrease disability related, typically mortality, to suicide. So prevention can work, but in other areas, including depression and including here with this tremendous increase dementia, we do have actually a problem. We do not have sufficient or efficient prevention approaches or prevention tools to actually address the increasing burden, which is, as I mentioned before, also related to the aging population. In fact, as you know, dementia cases also in Switzerland will probably, this is the estimation, double until 2050. So we have a tremendous disability and cost, and let me also mention stigma, sufferance for the patient, for caregivers related to brain disorders. Also in Switzerland, we will have to deal with increasing disability costs and prevalence of these disorders. But the good news is that if we had, and if we have, as we do to some extent, prevention approaches, then we can do something. And this leads actually to the second part of my talk, the opportunity. We can more and more prevent brain disorders, and we should promote brain health across the life course, as this article shows you, depending on which moment in the life course. Obviously, the approaches and the different impacts are different, and this is obviously very important because there is not one size fits all, depending on your approach and where your emphasis is, whether you're addressing population prevention, promotion of health in the population, or at risk subjects, or in patients with already increasing symptoms. The approach is obviously different, and the age obviously also plays a role. Now, as I mentioned, I started with, if you want, the negative side of the picture. Now, the positive side is that we start also in neurology and psychiatry to have effective means to prevent brain disorders. Now, two dramatic good examples, there are others, so please don't take this slide as, I would say, suggesting that we have only prevention for dementia and strokes. We have for other brain disorders, including the depression, addiction, etc., head trauma. But if you look now at the estimation, these are not true data shown in studies, but these are calculated or estimated reductions of incidence and eventually burden, up to 50%, according to the Lancet Commission on Dementia, may be prevented if, at least theoretically, one could be able or would be able to address those factors, determinants in early life, in adulthood, and in late life, which eventually increase the risk for dementia: education, nutrition, physical activity, depression, head trauma, social isolation, hearing loss, visual loss, etc. Now, if you go to the problematic of strokes, the estimated, again, I have stressed the fact that we talk about estimation, not real study data, the potential prevention of strokes may be as high as 50 to 80%. And this is a nice summarizing slide from the American Heart Association, which shows the so-called 8 lives essential. There are many other factors that may lead or increase the risk for stroke, but you see the most important ones, which are self-explanatory. I would like to mention that fortunately, slowly, sleep is also seen as a determinant of risk of body, but also brain disorders, including stroke. So this context of increasing burden and on the other side, increasing possibilities to prevent brain disorders led in 2022 the brain health, the WHO to publish the brain health position paper. I can only recommend to you to read this very well written paper, which provides also a definition of brain health, which is shown here. Brain health can be defined as a state of brain functioning across cognitive, sensory, social, emotional, behavioral, and motor domains, allowing a person to realize their full potential over the life course, irrespective of the presence or absence of disorder. So brain health is not defined by the absence of brain disorders, but as a value in itself, we should be promoted across the life span, the life course, and this is where we have these two different life span representatives, early life and late life. In both stages, we can and we should do something, but obviously the most effective way to promote brain health and prevent brain disorders is if you start in the utero of the mothers of our young generations. Now, a second statement that the white paper makes is crucial to understand that promoting brain health, and this was mentioned by Eva Segelov, is also promoting overall health. And this is stated in this short sentence of the WHO position paper: optimizing brain health improves mental and physical health and also creates positive social and economic impacts, all of which contribute to greater well-being and help advance society. So I do not need to explain to you that brain health has multiple effects. A well-functioning brain has multiple effects also in the way you behave, in the way you interact, in the way you socialize. And for this reason, promoting brain health is promoting actually many other functions which go beyond the brain function itself. This is shown in this nice picture, which we have published with Professor Beek from Geneva, which in fact visualize or shows why promoting brain health has an impact on global and actually on One Health, because the brain is obviously the organ that allows us to, function at different levels. So mental health depends obviously on a healthy brain. So you could say brain health is the prerequisite for mental health. And brain health, as we understand it, is just not limited to the function of the brain itself, but also the way the brain interacts with the outer world, body health, well-being. And I would like to mention that we should invest in brain health also because our creativity, our humanity, the way we can deal also with artificial intelligence depends on our human brain, our capacity to develop empathy, and also our social skills all depend on our brains. I sometimes use the narrative investing in brain health is also investing in the future of our society. And for many countries like Switzerland, where we do not have natural resources or rich resources, we should invest in the brains of our young and generations. Now, I spoke about preventing of brain disorders, but in fact, we can also modulate and decrease or reduce and increase our brain health through multiple interventions that we can actually perform or consider for our everyday life. I would like to show you two very recent Nature papers which actually support the idea that we can improve and increase our brain health also as healthy or still healthy subject. This paper on the left shows you that this is a meta-analysis of several studies looking at the effects of sleep loss, so sleep deprivation and sleep disorders, on morphometric data, imaging data of the brain. And without going to the details, you see that sleep loss and sleep disorders are linked with morphometric measures of the brain. So this is obviously a measure also of the way the brain functions and is constituted, even in an asymptomatic or still asymptomatic manner. And on the other side, this is the nice work of the group of Professor Ibanez. If you dance, if you perform music, if you engage in visual activities and in some form of gaming, limited in time, and etc., you can actually promote brain connectivity and eventually also brain health. So please take a look to these two quite thought-provoking papers, which are not about preventing brain disorders, but actually modulating our potential, our brain health. status. Now, I mentioned before that promoting brain health means also promoting health in general, but also the wealth of the individuals and of the society. Now, this is a relatively new topic, and the term brain capital has been suggested. You see that this has become also a topic at the Davos meeting. Forbes reported on the emergence of brain health as a priority at Davos, and you see the titles from the World Economic Forum. I have been there twice discussing these topics. And eventually, the key question, and actually the challenging question, is how can we measure brain health skills and brain health indexes, and how can you then come up with a brain capital index, and how does a change in the brain capital index may influence brain functions, but also eventually economics. And this interesting paper, the Global Brain Capital Index Towards a Brain Positive Economy, was just published by the Mediterranean a Mediterranean group of economists, and it's a very thought-provoking, again, paper. They suggest an index. However, this has not yet been validated, and in Switzerland, we are also looking into this right now. So we have a problem, we have opportunities, so we need to invest, and this is why we and many people in the meantime believe that promoting brain health is a priority for our country. I'm proud to say that we were among the first worldwide to develop a national plan. The coming out was in 22. The large paper came out in 2023. I'm happy to say that we had over 50 co-authors coming from neurology, psychiatry, neurosurgery, neuroradiology, but also public health, social and preventive medicine. We had the Nobel Prize, we had economists, we had GPs. So this was actually a bottom-up activity which defined 5 priorities, which are not surprising. They're not completely original. If you look around the world, what do the others declare as priorities? They are quite similar. We need to promote awareness about brain health, what it means and what is the potential, but also the importance of preventing brain disorders. We will have to deal with an increasing burden of brain disorders, and even for Switzerland as a rich country, we will not have enough working force to take care of this. So we need to think about new generations of health professionals that will help us to promote health and prevent brain disorders. We should invest in interprofessional training. I did not speak much about research on brain health and brain disorder determinants. We need to have a mechanistic understanding of how brain disorders arise. So we need more research. There is an incredible discrepancy between the burden of brain disorders and how much research is promoted also by national organizations. We need to invest in campaigns to promote brain health or preventing brain disorders. And finally, last but not least, the voice of patients and caregivers are essential to guide our reflections and our actions. Very frequently I'm asked, so what makes the Swiss Brain Health Plan a little bit different or special, if we believe it is special, as compared to other European initiatives? I would like to mention that Norway was the first country in 2018 to develop as a national brain plan. Germany, Finland, Sweden, and Switzerland were the next ones. And now I believe there are more than 10 countries in Europe that are developing or develop plans. So what characterizes our plan is that we promote, as you see here, holistic, integrated, and science-based approach. Holistic means that we want to create bridges between different disciplines and different professions, which also documents the understanding that brain and brain health are not, a domain of a single specialist, doctors or health professional. The second point is that we need to work together. There is an incredible fragmentation in this domain in Switzerland as outside Switzerland, and in times of limited resources, we need to join forces. And we need to inform public health activities through true and evolving science-based informations. And finally, patients, families, and patient organizations. The second characteristic, which is not specific, obviously, for what we do, but very important, is that we need to understand what is already existing to avoid, duplications of efforts. And we need also to provide Swiss data, and this is why we have engaged in the last 2-3 years in a quite tedious and demanding mapping of existing activities, in also finding collaborations with the different prevention stakeholders in Switzerland, and eventually creating public-private partnership efforts with different stakeholders, including academia. The 3 major authorities in Switzerland that are concerned with prevention activities are the Federal Office of Public Health, Promotion Santé Suisse, and the Conference of the Cantonal Health Ministers. And here we are happy to say that we met already twice. Our health minister, Ms. Baum-Schneider, you see her here with Ms. Levy, and we will meet her for the 3rd time this year, and hopefully we will get a mandate, which we did not receive yet. Now, the efforts of our initiative are reflected by the multiple stakeholders representing science, health, politics, nationally, internationally, which are now our partners of the Swiss Brain Health Plan. And let me show you some implementation results. We have been very active internationally. We were the first one to actually collect ideas and present initiatives from across the world. This was a meeting that took place in June in Bern last year, and 22 plans were discussed and presented. We had the honor of having also the health minister of Italy, Mr. Schillaci, with us, and this is probably one of the reasons that I was trusted with Professor Winkler the task of coordinating the International Brain Health Lancet Commission. We have been active nationally, but also internationally, and I am happy and proud to show you that also at European level, already a few years ago, and actually also a few days ago, we had the chance to talk about brain disorders, brain health, prevention of brain disorders, and we were hosted for 20 minutes by Ms. Mazzola, the President of the European Parliament, who showed interest in promoting brain health in the future health strategy of the European Parliament. In Bern, we have been promoting the creation of this International Certificate of Advanced Studies in Brain Health. This is truly interprofessional. It's open for different health professions. It is now entering the 2nd cycle. It's virtual, the course. It's postgraduate. It's in English.
Sorry, Entschuldigung.
Yeah. And we had a number of participants across the world. I would like to show you that we have been also working on burden and budget spending of brain condition in Switzerland. We have been showing the reduction of costs related to drug use and stroke, as I mentioned before. But we have been showing, these are fresh data that are now being submitted for publication, that in Switzerland today, 23% of the costs, the leading health costs in Switzerland, relate to brain disorders, with dementia, anxiety, depression, and stroke being the leading contributors to these costs. I will not go into the details. We have been working also on the burden of sleep disorders. This is a recently published paper showing that this is a collaboration with the European Academy of Neurology. These are data from Europe, not only from Switzerland. We do have also data from Switzerland. The conclusions of the paper were that 30% of the population suffers of a sleep disorder, and 3% of the GDP of Western countries, including Switzerland, is linked to sleep disorders. We are working on new approaches to promote an AI-assisted brain health check, which take advantage of different measures of brain functioning, which can be neuroimaging data, which can be questionnaire data, which can be simple clinical data, data coming from wearables. This is a work in progress. This is the vision. We don't have this AI model, this algorithm, but we're working with different experts, including Professors Atina Zovara, Stavrula Mujakako, Roland Wiestek, etc., here in Bern and internationally on this endeavor. We have produced recommendations for Promotion Santé, which identify 5 domains: promoting cognitive functions, promoting good sleep, promoting resilience factors for mental disorders, preventing head trauma, and promoting an equilibrated use of digital tools. We have engaged patients and caregivers with very important testimonials. And by this, I come to the conclusion. I hope I could show you what motivated us to start a brain health initiative in Switzerland. It is related to the burden, but also to the potential of promoting health and prevention for brain disorders. This is something that concerns us all. And I would be happy to take questions and also to see that I may motivate some of you to join this fantastic activity, which places, and let me be a little bit less modest than we typically are in Bern, to say in Switzerland, we are actually showing what can be done and what should be done at international level. And so please join the initiative. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for this actually incredibly inspiring lecture and comprehensive lecture. Obviously, a new way of thinking about one of our biggest health problems. I'll open the floor to questions. Just put your camera on or raise your hand. Professor Ineichen?
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for the talk. So you mentioned that more research is needed in the realm of brain health. Do you think there is specific questions we need to answer more urgently than others in this regard?
Well, yes. I think, as I mentioned, first we need to convince the stakeholders that this is a problem. And this is why I showed to you that we are delivering some papers on the burden in Switzerland. I think there is, generally speaking, a neglect on the problem just because these data are relatively new. So this is also research on burden, research on costs. The second is that I believe we should, and we started, look at what can promote brain health. So, I mean, we cannot invest our whole energies in telling the people, you should not do that and that, because otherwise you get a stroke, you get depression, you get dementia. This is obviously a narrative which we use in medicine, but I believe that the concept of brain health also carries a positive message. So it is about promoting your own potential. And so I think we need, however, to go beyond what you can find in Glückspost and Familie or, the journal. So we need to develop, and here I link to the brain health check, we need to promote approaches that are individualized and are also, targeting specific potentials and weakness. These, I think, it's one of the major challenges. So the idea of developing a brain health check goes in this direction. So we would like to be able, for Benjamin, for Claudio, for Eva, to know what is your status, what could you do personally in targeting specific domains, what could you do to promote your own. And then we come to the more specific topic of primary prevention. As you understand, brain health is more about promoting health and primary prevention. Obviously, we should understand which risk factors are co-shared. You know, I mean, we speak in domains like neurology, psychiatry, but eventually we should understand that promoting health and preventing disorders should join forces. And we understand today that stroke, depression, dementia shared a lot of similar risk factors. So we need to develop. So these are some of the priorities, and we try to cope with all these different challenges working at different levels. Thank you for the nice, good question.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions, Lydia? Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much, Professor Bassetti. So, very interesting again to see what you succeeded in over the last years. And just 2 questions actually for research purposes. I recognize in neurology and psychiatry there are also problems of language. We don't have a common language of similar or quite quite similar symptoms. Do you think this also would be interesting, or this actually would need very joint forces, I guess, to get go on that we also talk about the same things? And then another question is about reimbursement of clinical, common and transdiagnostic and transdisciplinary actions and at the clinical wards. How do you think we could solve that? Because we're used that usually reimbursement of clinical treatment and at the ward side also is a big problem. So who is paying for what, and can we share costs, and so the practical side of it? Sorry to have 2 questions here. Maybe you can answer.
Thank you, Lydia. Well, you know, unfortunately, the two fields separated maybe 100 or 150 years ago. I like to mention that the debate between brain and mental health, obviously not in these terms, was raised already 1850 by Professor Griesinger in Zurich, who said all psychiatric disorders are brain disorders. So, I mean, in fact, this, I would say, conundrum or this debate is old, and for different reasons, the two disciplines have a little bit separated. I mean, neurology and psychiatry, and I believe, as I stressed before, that in the future we will have to share similar educational approaches and create a new generation of people that understand, you know, the need of speaking a similar language. So it boils down also to track educational pathways, which are, by the way, exist already in different places of the world and used to exist, by the way, also in Switzerland, because we used to have the Nervenarzt many decades ago. So, I mean, we have just to rediscover something that existed. The second point is really a major issue. We know that in all countries, and certainly in Switzerland, only maybe a very small fraction of the whole health cost goes for prevention. So this is something that needs to be addressed. In Switzerland, over 50% of the costs for dementia go to nursing homes, and which obviously is very needed, but it cannot be that we spend most of the money for nursing home and so little for prevention and early diagnosis and early interventions. So I think there needs to be a change in mindset, which is obviously difficult because for treating disorders, you have many options, and we have the pharma industry, which is obviously very important. But for prevention, you have very difficult, different and actually quite weak stakeholders. So I think there will be needed change in paradigm, which is hard to promote. And we don't have a law in Switzerland for this, and it was actually rejected a few years ago. I think there is still some work ahead of us.
Thank you very much. I might take the chair's prerogative and ask the final question, Claudio, just to be a bit provocative. To what extent do you think the lack of funding for brain research relates to the gender gap, particularly in the between men and women in Alzheimer's and other depression and other diseases.
Thank you for stressing a very important point, which actually is also included in the paper that Indrid has been summarizing, and I will certainly take note that we should stress this point. Now, I'm not sure it is really directly linked. It could be linked to this, but what is a fact is that many brain disorders appear to have a larger and more important impact on the lives of women than men. If you look at Alzheimer's, if you look at migraine, there are many. So I think the burden of brain disorders and the burden of relatives and family members of brain disorders people represent an incredible burden for women in our society. So I think we are proud also working with the Women's Brain Health Initiative, because there is insufficient understanding and appreciation of the role. Is this a bias towards reduced? It could be. I don't know, but it could be. It could be linked also. Thank you for raising this important point and allowing me to comment on the differential burden between women and men which exists.
Unfortunately, I need to bring this to an end. It's been a fascinating journey through a lot of incredible work at a global level as well as a Swiss level. And Claudia, we're very, very proud to have you as our Dean leading this incredible work. So thanks everyone for joining. And just if you turn on your cameras and we can give a clap, it's nice to see each other and at this very well attended talk. And don't forget for DCR lecture next month. Good.
So good to see you. All the best. Thank you for joining. All the best.